Hello and welcome to the NFL DFS Breakdown for Thursday Night Football. We got the Steelers at the Browns. Going to be an interesting game, and we will break it all down. I'm your host, Tyler Weeman, at FlatTyler83 on your DFS sites and Twitter. Now let's get into it, but before we do, come join us at LineStar. $39.99 per month gets you access to all we do, all the props, all the DFS. You get it all. One low price. All right. We got a nice single gamer on our hands. Steelers versus Browns. Let's get over to DraftKings to break down the game as a whole and dig through it. Let me just go setting it all up, making sure we're all good to go. All right, so both quarterbacks, based on our team defense tool, are in tough matchups. Pittsburgh, 7th first quarterback. Browns are 4th. Doesn't bode well for success of either of them. The one thing, though, is that the Steelers are absolutely willing to just try to run the ball all game long and keep their throwing to a minimum. They try to keep Russell Wilson to less than 30 attempts. Doesn't always happen, but that is what they try to do. The thing is that he still has some upside with those limited attempts because he has a great deep ball, and when that's going, there is upside. Browns have been able to give up, or have been giving up, a few big plays. So the deep ball is there for Russell Wilson. However, I do like Winston a little bit more as a quarterback. The big reason here is just because he is slinging it. 46 attempts, 41 attempts. They're throwing the ball so much that I think there's a really nice floor, and the ceiling is way higher than Russell Wilson with that. Now, does that ceiling come in to play this game? Maybe not. But I would err on the side of liking Winston more than I do Wilson if I had to pick between the two in this spot. Now, let's get over to running back spot. So we got Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, with Cordell Patterson taking about 10% of snaps last week. Warren playing around 40%, Najee playing 55-60%. Najee's definitely out-touching Warren by a decent amount, but Warren's snaps have been coming up, or touches. 13 last week, 16 the week before. He is definitely getting the ball, and surprisingly, he has not had a touchdown yet this season. We're going to see a big Jaylen Warren game at some point this season. So I think taking some shots on him at low ownership when, he's playing 40% of the snaps or so and getting a decent amount of touch volume is a little interesting in this spot. After all, it is going to be tough to really beat the Browns on the ground. They're only allowing 72.8 rushing yards and 0.8 touchdowns over the last 4. So it doesn't bode well for either Harris or Warren, but Warren can break the big play a little bit easier than Najee can. But Najee's usage is higher. His red zone usage is higher. So both guys have a path to success. It really just comes down to who gets the touchdowns. Harris has the higher floor. Most likely has the higher ceiling, but both can absolutely get it done. On the Browns side, it is a little harder to figure out what to do. Jerome Ford has actually been outpacing or outsnapping Chubb, but not out-touching him. The only time he's really getting the touches is when they're down big and they're passing a little bit more. So Jerome Ford, while he's playing more, he's just not getting the volume, while Nick Chubb has got touches, 11, 15, 16, 18, 12. He's just doing absolutely nothing with them. The Saints were a very good matchup, and he still couldn't average 5 yards a carry, was under that. The team wants to throw it a lot. There's really not a ton of pathways to Nick Chubb breaking the slate. However, there are absolutely pathways to him getting a touchdown. Steelers allowing 1.5 touchdowns per game to the running back right now, at least over the last 4. And they're down on the 1. Nick Chubb's likely to get it. So Nick Chubb, you're really going to need a touchdown to be optimal, but at his price, just a touchdown may not do it. So there's kind of an interesting little situation right there. And then Pierre Strong is barely playing at all, so we don't really need to worry about him. Team defense tool does have Chubb being a good matchup, but it is largely just due to the touchdown situation. They're negative in rush yards. It's great in rush TDs and slightly positive through the air, but he's not going to get the air work. The touchdown work is what he needs to come through with. Now, getting over to wide receiver. This is a very interesting one to talk about. So we'll start with the Steelers. Mike Williams, the new addition to the team, played 32% of the snaps last week. I would expect that to come up. He is slowly getting more involved in this offense. Maybe he gets to 50%. And at 3,200, I think you got to consider him at 50% if he's playing 50% of the snaps. It's an interesting punt that is going low owned that could really pay off. He is a very good deep threat. In his first game, he did have that 1 target, 1 reception for 32 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he does that again, and he's going to be optimal in this game. So I think Mike Williams, we know the talent's there. We know he can get deep. We know he can go up to, the point of the catch and battle DBs to come down with the ball. And Russell Wilson is fully willing to throw deep balls. So I think he is a little bit different, interesting. George Pickens is obviously the alpha wide receiver and needs to be considered in any lineup. On the Browns side, we got Cedric Tillman, Eli Moore, and Jerry Jeudy. All are very, very much involved. Tillman and Jeudy are the 1s and 2s. They're both playing 90+%, 95+%. They're on the field a ton. Moore is around 70-ish, 75, but all are getting targeted a ton. Eli Moore has like 29 targets in three games with Winston. He's getting a ton of targets, and all 3 of these guys need to be considered. If we look at our team defense tool, the wide receiver 3 spot, which is Eli Moore, is the most attractive matchup for the Browns. It is a tough matchup for Tillman or Jeudy. So Eli Moore at 6,400 getting target volume is super, super interesting. And I don't mind going that way at all. And really just mixing and matching these 3 receivers is a pretty interesting play because likely 2 of them are going to get solid target volume, at least 2. Pickens, obviously the alpha in the whole group. Now, getting over to tight end. This one is another one that there's a little bit of a rabbit hole to go down. With the Steelers, the last 2 games, Darnell Washington has at least tied or had more snaps than Pat Freiermuth. Over that span, he also has more targets. He is cheaper and he is less owned. And the consensus projections, as well as ours, are still showing Freiermuth over Darnell Washington. I think there is a clear situation that there could have been a flip where Washington is a little bit more of the one now. 4 targets last week, 3 the week before. He's had a couple target games of, 3-4 targets. I think he is starting to gain some traction in this offense, and he is a punt play that I think is very interesting. As far as like his size and athleticism, it's pretty unreal, and he is definitely a guy to watch. On the other side, David Njoku is essentially a receiver in the tight end spot, so he is the clear alpha out of all of the tight ends in this game. You do have big time upside. He's targeted a ton, gets a lot of yards, and there's touchdown capabilities with him, where Pittsburgh is solid but not great versus the tight end, so I don't mind going to Njoku. And then I think Darnell Washington is a very, very interesting punt. Now, Jordan Akins, he gets some target volume. He's had 4 targets the last 2 weeks, 4 targets 3 of the last 4 weeks. So there is some viability to using him. It just comes down to he is touchdown or bust. He's only 600 or 1,600. So on DraftKings, I would be absolutely firing away a little bit. Now, with the differences of pricing on FanDuel, he's not somebody I would probably tend to go to that much, just because, I mean, their minimum price is just too high, where those guys start to be hard to get into your lineups. FanDuel, I'm still considering Darnell Washington, though. All right, over to defenses. We got the Steelers versus the Browns. So I think you got to consider the Steelers here. They can get after the quarterback. Browns are going to throw a ton, and Jameis Winston had 30-30 seasons where 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. When you're going to throw the ball and throw it like that, the other opposing defense obviously is in play. Now, the Browns can put up points, but I do find that Steelers defense interesting. The Browns side, they're at home. It's going to be cold weather. If they can slow the game down a little bit and make the Steelers really work, their path to being optimal is really just limiting points. Wilson doesn't turn the ball over that much. So for that reason, I don't love the Browns as much. There's just not as much upside in them, but there is some paths to success. If the Steelers are just totally off their game on a short week, traveling to Cleveland in cold weather, then maybe there's a little bit of a path to Browns defensive success. And over to kicker. Chris Boswell would be the number 1 tight end in the league for fantasy scoring. So I think that alone tells you need to consider him. He kicked 6 field goals last week, and he has multiple weeks of 3, 4 plus field goals. So he needs to be in consideration. We've seen big time upside out of him. You don't see kickers with 2 20 plus, almost 25-point games in a season, and he's done it. So I think you kind of got to consider him, or strongly consider him. On the other side, Hopkins missed 2 field goals last week, missed 1 the week before. He has been struggling a little bit. I think the upside is a little more limited, but in a 1-game sample size, literally anything can happen, and so you do need to consider Hopkins, but he is lower on my board of wanting to play than Boswell for sure. Now, the Pittsburgh D is solid, so the chance of Cleveland getting into the red zone and then just not being able to get it through is decent, but we also need Hopkins to be hitting those kicks when he's 50% over the last 4 weeks and 70% on the year. So it is a little bit more of a chance all in all, but fine going to him. So that'll do it for us today, guys. I hope some of that information helped you guys, and we will be back later this week with more. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the video. I will see you later. Peace.